She was the queen of Atlanta. Until they made her disappear. No goodbye, no tribute, just silence. Miss Juicy, the bold voice we all loved, vanished from reality TV and radio overnight. Was it burnout, or was it betrayal? And when Miss Minnie tragically died, everything changed. Behind the laughter and drama, there were contracts, pressure, and pain, and now, for the first time, the truth is coming out. Did producers turn her real pain into entertainment? Did Carlos King keep the cameras rolling while the women broke down off-screen? You think you know reality TV? Think again, because what happened behind the scenes will leave you speechless. Was it all just for show? Behind the lights, laughter, and fame, Miss Juicy Baby's journey hides a much deeper truth, one filled with heartbreak, health battles, and unanswered questions. From the dramatic twists on Little Women, Atlanta, to her sudden absence from the Rickey Smiley morning show, her silence has left fans confused. What really happened after Miss Minnie's heartbreaking death? And what role did Carlos King, the man behind many reality shows, play in the chaos that followed? Stay with us, because what you are about to hear changes everything. Miss Juicy, lovingly called the Queen of Atlanta, made her name by being bold, funny, and always unforgettable. Whether she was lighting up the screen on Little Women, Atlanta, or bringing her charm to the radio, she was more than just a star, she was a powerful voice. But then, something shifted. One day, she was there. The next, she was gone. No farewell message, no explanation, just silence. Miss Juicy, the vibrant and unforgettable voice of both Little Women, Atlanta, and the Rickey Smiley morning show, had vanished from the spotlight without a trace. Fans were left stunned and confused. People who had followed her for years waited for an update, but none came. And then, when the silence became too loud to ignore, the heartbreaking truth surfaced: Miss Juicy had suffered a serious stroke. It was shocking. The woman who had brought joy, laughter, and fire to millions was now fighting for her life. At the same time, the world was still grieving the loss of another fan favorite. Ashley, Ms. Minnie Rosu, had died in a tragic car crash just 2 years earlier. Her sudden death had left a deep scar, not just on the cast but on the entire community of fans who had grown to love her. As Juicy battled her own health crisis, the timing sparked questions that had been quietly building for years. Whispers started growing louder. People began to ask, were the emotional moments on Little Women, Atlanta real, or were they scripted to boost ratings? Were cast members, including Juicy, pressured to keep the drama going even when it hurt them personally? And was Carlos King, the man behind the show's production, guiding these narratives from behind the scenes? All while keeping his stars in emotional chaos. What once seemed like normal reality TV tension was beginning to look like something far more complicated. In this video, we are going deeper than ever before. We are pulling back the curtain to explore the contracts that silenced voices, the backdoor deals that shaped storylines, and the emotional toll placed on women who simply wanted to tell their truth. For the first time, crew members, insiders, and even some former castmates are stepping forward. What they are sharing sheds light on a side of the entertainment industry that many never see. One where performers give their all and are sometimes left with nothing in return. Miss Juicy's disappearance, once seen as sudden and strange, starts to make more sense when viewed in this light. It was not just about leaving the spotlight. It may have been about survival. The truth is, Miss Juicy may have been treated more like a character than a persona, tool to keep the show exciting, even at the expense of her own peace. For years, Juicy was the glue that held Little Women, Atlanta together. Her laugh, her shade, her charisma. She was the spark that made the show memorable. She played the peacemaker, the provocateur, the comedian, and sometimes even the villain, depending on what the show needed. And yet, while she carried that emotional weight, producers seemed more focused on the chaos than the character, instead of highlighting her growth, her story, and her strength. The spotlight often went to the loudest fights and most explosive drama. This imbalance did not go unnoticed. Fans began to wonder why Juicy's real-life struggles were brushed aside. Why did it feel like she was pushed into arguments for entertainment? Why was her departure from the Rickey Smiley morning show never addressed? And why did no one from the network speak up when she suffered a medical emergency? Some close to production have started sharing what they saw. According to insiders, Juicy was seen as essential but not treated as equal. She was expected to show up, keep the energy high, and stay in line even when the cameras were off. When she asked for better pay or more creative control, she was met with resistance. And when she decided to walk away, She was quietly replaced. No tribute, no public thank you. Not even a social media post. This silence spoke louder than any episode ever aired. Behind the scenes, the emotional pressure was real. Cast members were reportedly encouraged to revisit painful memories, stir up conflict, and even pretend to be angry when they were not. Producers knew what made good television. But what about the people behind the drama? When Juicy was pushed too far, when the stress, the grief from losing Minnie, and the weight of being a public figure finally hit, she stepped back, and then her body followed. The stroke was a wake-up call. It reminded everyone that these women are not just entertainers. They are real people with real feelings and real health risks. This should have been a turning point for the show. It could have sparked a more compassionate approach. Carlos King and his team had the chance to pause, to reflect, and to care. A tribute to Minnie, a sit-down with Juicy, a real conversation about mental health and burnout. But that never happened. The cameras kept rolling. The seasons continued, and Juicy slipped away, quietly and painfully, from the very world she helped create. Yet despite everything, Miss Juicy is still here. She may not be front and center like before, but her spirit is alive. She has loyal fans who still cheer her on, a voice that still holds weight, and a story that still matters. She overcame grief, career betrayal, and a life-threatening stroke. Now, she is taking her power back slowly, surely, and with grace. This is not just a story about reality TV. It is a story about being seen, being heard, and knowing when to walk away. Miss Juicy's silence was not weakness, it was strength. And now, she is writing her next chapter on her terms. Get ready, this is where things get serious. At first glance, Little Women, Atlanta looked like any other reality show, loud, and full of wild moments. But something always felt strange. And when Miss Juicy's scenes started to feel over the top, fans started asking, was it even real? When the show first launched, it broke new ground. It gave viewers a look into the lives of little people, their struggles, dreams, friendships, and pain. Miss Juicy instantly stole the spotlight with her strong personality, unique laugh, and clever one-liners. She was the star of the show. But beneath the makeup and fun, she was dealing with real emotional weight and stress. That is when things began to fall apart. Was the drama all real? Over the years, several cast members have spoken out. They said some moments were scripted. Fights were staged. Even tears were sometimes planned. Fans noticed the same arguments repeating, and friendships falling apart on screen, even when everything was fine behind the scenes. Many point to Carlos King, the man behind shows like Love and Marriage, Huntsville, saying he had a habit of turning real life into dramatic TV. One insider shared that cast members were told to create drama or risk losing their spot. Sometimes, people were pushed to cry or argue even when it was not real. For Miss Juicy, juggling her public image, her health, and a demanding career, it all became too heavy. And that is when everything changed. People close to Miss Juicy started noticing a change. Her bright energy seemed dimmed, her usual spark faded. It felt like she was no longer in control of her own image. Instead of being herself, she looked like someone who had to play a version of Miss Juicy, a character shaped by producers and storylines. The fun, confident woman fans had always loved was slowly being replaced by someone going through the motions. And after the devastating loss of her dear friend and co-star, Miss Minnie, that shift became even more visible. Miss Juicy and Minnie shared a complicated but deeply emotional bond. On-screen, they often clashed, throwing jabs and engaging in heated arguments that made for dramatic television. But behind the scenes, there was a growing connection, one built on mutual respect, shared experiences, and personal growth. In later seasons, their relationship had softened, and fans watched as the two women found common ground and began to support one another. So when Minnie tragically passed away in a car accident in 2020, it hit Juicy hard. It was more than losing a colleague. It was like losing a little sister. Those around her said the grief was overwhelming. She began to withdraw, emotionally and physically. Yet despite her heartbreak, she felt pressured to keep going. Contract obligations and behind-the-scenes expectations kept dragging her back into a space she no longer wanted to be in. Even as her heart broke, the cameras kept rolling. What made everything worse was how the show handled Minnie's death. Rather than pressing pause or allowing time for the cast to mourn, production moved forward at full speed. There was no real moment of stillness, no extended tribute, no deep reflection. Minnie's memory was acknowledged briefly, but the storylines quickly shifted back to the usual mix of conflict and chaos. For many viewers, it felt wrong, cold, uncaring. People who had followed the show from the beginning began to speak out. They questioned why the show did not take a step back to properly honor one of its core cast members. It felt like Minnie's death was brushed aside to keep up the drama. Viewers were left wondering, was this show truly about the lives of these women, or just about keeping ratings high? For Miss Juicy, the emotional weight of it all was becoming unbearable. She was dealing with grief, industry pressure, and the pain of being expected to smile and perform like everything was fine. Some fans believe she felt guilty not being closer to Minnie in her final days, not mending their relationship sooner. But even more than that, she seemed tired. Tired of being strong for the cameras, tired of being told how to feel and what to say. What should have been a time of healing became just another chapter in a reality show that refused to slow down. And Juicy, who had once been its shining star, found herself questioning everything: her role, her worth, her purpose within it all. This was the moment when many fans started to see things differently. Miss Juicy, once seen as a fierce and unstoppable force, now looked worn out, emotionally drained, and ready to walk away. And who could blame her? In a world where pain became profit and real-life tragedy was turned into plot points, her silence started to speak louder than any on-screen scene. The loss of Miss Minnie was more than just a sad event. It was a turning point for the show, for the fans, and especially for Miss Juicy. What followed wasn't just grief, it was a deeper realization that something needed to change. As more seasons aired, longtime fans began to speak up. Something felt fake. What once felt real now looked like staged drama. Social media buzzed with questions. YouTube channels and Reddit forums started analyzing episodes, and even Juicy's iconic sass began to feel tired and forced. The fun was fading. Miss Juicy was not just a reality TV star. She was a radio icon. For over 15 years, she lit up the Rickey Smiley Morning Show with her humor, charm, and unforgettable voice. She made millions laugh. But in 2022, she simply vanished. No goodbye, no post, no sign-off. Fans were confused. Where was Juicy? Why was no one talking about it? Something deeper was clearly going on. Behind the scenes, things were far from perfect. Although the show looked like a close-knit radio team, insiders said the reality was different. Juicy brought in big ratings and had a loyal fan base, but she often felt disrespected. People talked over her on air. Her time was cut short, and she rarely got the recognition she earned. Even in interviews, Juicy hinted that she felt overlooked and underpaid. Listeners began to notice. Her presence faded. Her microphone was quieter. And eventually, it was like she had been erased. Even Rickey Smiley, the star of the show, barely mentioned her. When she left, there were no goodbyes, not even a tweet. That silence spoke volumes. Sources later revealed that Miss Juicy's departure was tied to a contract dispute. She reportedly asked for a raise and more control over her role-fare requests. Considering how much her brand had grown, her memes, catchphrases, and viral moments were everywhere. She was not just a voice, she was the show's personality. Yet, she was allegedly still being treated like a sidekick. And when she stood up for herself, the response was silence. Suddenly, she was gone. Fans were furious. Many felt the show would never be the same. They did her wrong, people said. Rickey should have fought for her, but the show stayed quiet. And so did Miss Juicy. Some believe she was asked to sign an NDAA non-disclosure agreement when she left. That could explain why she never told her side of the story. What we do know is this: she never came back, and the show never addressed her exit. Then came the most devastating news. Not long after leaving both radio and reality TV, Miss Juicy suffered a severe stroke in 2022. She was rushed to the ICU, and her team later confirmed she was in recovery, but her condition was serious. Fans around the world were Many are still waiting for the full truth behind her silence, her struggles, and the real story behind her exit from the spotlight. Some fans believe that the stress, emotional weight, and non-stop pressure from both Little Women, Atlanta, and Miss Juicy's quiet exit from the Rickey Smiley Morning Show played a role in her health struggles. She gave everything to those shows, one supporter posted online. But when she needed them the most, they vanished. The world of Little Women was shaken to its core on April 27, 2020. That was the day Ashley, Ms. Minnie Rosa, beloved cast member, tragically lost her life in a car crash in Atlanta. She was only 34 years old. At first, the reports were unclear. Some said it was a hit and run, others claimed Minnie lost control of her vehicle. Some even believed reckless driving was involved. No matter the cause, her death left a deep wound, not just on the show but in the hearts of fans everywhere, and for Miss Juicy, it was personal. Minnie was more than just a co-star, she was like a younger sister. Their relationship on camera was fiery and often dramatic. They argued, threw shade, and even tossed drinks at each other, but behind the scenes, something real was growing. In later seasons, their bond became stronger. They supported each other through hard times, heartbreaks, and personal growth. In one interview, Juicy shared, "She got on my nerves sometimes, but I loved that girl like family." She tried to finish her sentence, but emotions took over. That moment showed how deeply she felt the loss. After Minnie's death, Miss Juicy disappeared from the public eye. Her social media went quiet. She rarely made public appearances. Fans began to worry. Insiders later revealed that Juicy was devastated and blamed herself for not being closer to Minnie during her final days. The two had argued on camera shortly before Minnie's passing aired. Though it had been filmed months earlier, fans could not help but connect the dots. What hurt even more was how the network handled the loss. Just a few months after Minnie's death, Season 6 premiered with clips of Minnie used in the trailers. It seemed like the show moved on too quickly. New storylines picked up, contracts were renewed, and filming resumed without pause. For many, including Juicy, it felt like Minnie's death had been used to boost ratings. One castmate reportedly said, "We didn't even get time to grieve. Carlos just kept filming." Carlos King, the show's executive producer, has long been known for turning real-life emotions into gripping television. He is the force behind shows like Love and Marriage, Huntsville, and Hollywood Divas. But after Minnie's death, some fans and cast members felt he went too far. The tribute episode was short. The drama returned quickly. And people started asking, why wasn't there a full season to honor Minnie? Why was Juicy expected to keep going like nothing happened? Celebrating her, producers focused more on fights and chaos. Her real journey often got pushed aside in favor of drama. So, was this about lifting women up or just using them? Let's be real. Miss Juicy is smart, talented, and no one's puppet. But even the most aware stars can get caught in a system where ratings matter more than their well-being. Carlos King has said many times that his goal is to spotlight Black stories and, in some ways, he has done that. But when someone like Miss Juicy leaves both TV and radio, suffers a stroke, and is quietly replaced without even a goodbye, people start to wonder, was she ever truly supported? Was her health ever a priority? Was her voice heard when she finally said enough? Now here's the truth that stinks: it did not have to end like this. Imagine if Carlos King had stopped for a moment. Imagine if he honored Minnie with a full tribute, paused production to reflect, and gave Miss Juicy a space to speak openly in a heartfelt one-on-one. That would have changed everything. That could have healed so much. But instead, the show carried on as if nothing had happened, and Miss Juicy faded from view. At a time when Black women in entertainment are demanding respect, this was a moment to lead with empathy, and instead, it became another missed chance. But do not get it twisted, Miss Juicy is still here. She may no longer be on the airwaves or on your screen every week, but her voice remains powerful. Her fans are loyal. Her impact is real. She faced a tough industry, the loss of a dear friend, and a health scare that nearly took her life. But she survived it all. Now, step by step, she is rebuilding. This time, on her own terms. She is finding peace, reclaiming her voice, and reminding the world that her story is far from over.